Canada's World Juniors are once again on the road to redemption. Hey everyone, Rob Wong with you. Please be joined by Postmedia's Janson, who will be covering this year's World Junior Hockey Championship in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And Janson, we got to start with the elephant in the room. This tournament has not been kind to Canada of late, exiting in the quarterfinals in each of the last 2 years. It can't possibly happen again, can it?
Yeah, that's the big question this year. Of course, two terrible showings the past couple of years, not what Canadians expect from their World Junior teams. And this year feels like a big reset for the Canadians. After back-to-back quarterfinal losses to Czechia, obviously the margins are very thin at this tournament. And so the leadership is very different. They have a new GM in Alan Miller, and they have the Hunter brothers, Dale and Mark, at the helm of this team. And with people like that in charge, you know that the message is that talent alone isn't enough. They need execution. So the roster decisions reflect that, and they're hoping for a different result, obviously.
So Gavin McKenna headlines this year's team, and there's been some questions over the last couple of months about whether he will still be the consensus number one pick going into next year's draft, as his Canadian teammate Keaton Verhoeff has surpassed him in some evaluators' eyes. These two obviously want to win for Canada, but do you think there might be some internal competition between them, knowing that NHL teams will be watching them pretty closely to see how they do on this stage?
I think, they're not going to admit to having any internal competition, being teammates, but that internal rivalry will be there. Of course, Gavin McKenna will be a leading player on this team, likely playing a first-line role, and the pressure is on him enormously. Obviously, last weekend against Sweden, he had an own goal, which has only ramped up the pressure on himself and the team. Gavin McKenna will likely get a chance to play with players like Michael Misa and Porter Martone on the first line. So the opportunity is there for him to establish himself as the front runner for the number one pick once again. And Keaton Verhoeff may have a difficult time standing out at the same time, just due to the loaded defense that Canada has. Obviously, Keaton Verhoeff is one of maybe two undrafted defensemen on this team alongside Ethan McKenzie. And they've got Zane Parekh. Sam Dickinson will not be at the tournament, but Kashan Aitchison will be there. Cameron Reed will be there. So it'll be a tougher route for Keaton Verhoeff to establish himself, but the opportunity is there for both players. And Verhoeff, yes, is challenging McKenna for that number one consensus spot. But at the end of the day, McKenna has all the eyes on him, and he looks like he's ready to prove the doubters wrong.
So what's great about this tournament every year is there are, some players that end up becoming household names that a lot of people didn't know about before. And we just touched on two that I think a lot of people are going to know when the NHL draft comes around next year. But are there a couple of players you're keeping an eye on that you feel have a chance at this tournament to really become some players that Canadian hockey fans will know once the tournament concludes?
For sure. And I just mentioned Ethan McKenzie on the back end. He is an undrafted defenseman, did not get drafted last year in the 2025 draft, and he was a surprise choice on this roster, plays for the Edmonton Oil Kings, and he has been someone that has been, gained trust with Team Canada. He doesn't have much Team Canada experience at all in the past, but I think he should have an opportunity to play in that top four, possibly with Kashan Aitchison or with Harrison Brunick, and should gain a lot of attention for his skating and puck-moving ability. He came out of nowhere and should impress. Up on forward, I think Brady Martin is somebody who has the chance to, he's already been in the limelight. Obviously, he's a number 5 overall pick to the Nashville Predators last year, but he played on the top line in Canada's first pre-tournament game alongside Gavin McKenna and chipped in 2 goals. And I think he's a player who has the ability to play up and down the lineup. He could play on the fourth line. He's a heavy checking forward. He plays an aggressive style, but he can also score goals. And I think he'll really endear himself to Canadian fans for that play style, and he'll be a real identity player for the Canadians at this tournament.
Lastly, you mentioned, the management changes and, how the coaching staff is viewing this year's tournament. There's, clearly a goal here, and that is to win gold, but other countries are going to have a say in this. How do you feel Canada stacks up in this tournament, and who will be their biggest competition?
Of course, yeah. There's no easy games anymore at this tournament. Canada is still obviously considered a favorite even after those back-to-back quarterfinal losses. But, the tournament is being played in the U.S., and for them, it's the opportunity for a three-peat on home soil in Minnesota. And they have another strong team, again, loaded up this year for that three-peat attempt. And so they'll be Canada's biggest competition. Of course, you can't forget about Sweden. This is a gold or nothing year for them as well. And they boast another front runner, potential number one pick for the 2026 draft in Ivar Stenberg. And he'll be a key piece for them up front. And of course, you can't forget about Czechia, who has bounced Canada back-to-back years. They field a very strong team this year as well. And then there's Finland, who should also be a strong challenger, even though they will be without Buffalo Sabres prospect Konstas Helenius. They just found out. But Finland made it to the gold medal game last year, and they should be a strong team this year as well.
Well, it's always a great time of year with the holidays and the tournament about to start up. Janson, thanks for the talk.
Of course. Thank you so much, Rob.